Hey everybody, it's Party Elite. Welcome you back to another episode of our Planet Zoo franchise mode Let's Play. We're gonna dive right back into Elite Zoo South. Now I say welcome back to another episode, but it's not just like any other episode. It is a very big episode today, folks. We're hitting a major milestone as Elite Zoo South hits episode 100, which means that the Elite Zoo Company as a whole has hit episode 200. Now, many of you have been asking, is this going to be a 100 episode season? Are we going to go on for longer? I've mentioned it a couple times, and I'll mention it again for those of you who are wondering if we're just about to drop Elite Zoo South and move on or anything like that. Fear not. This season shall continue beyond episode 100, probably well beyond episode 100, as we endeavor to complete Elite Zoo South. We want to get all the, Southern Hemisphere animals in here. We want to get them comfortably set up. We want to get them beautiful spaces to live in, and only then will we look to what comes next. So, plenty more to do, but folks, we still want to celebrate such a massive milestone, of course. Now, I mentioned last session. Now, again, last session was a while ago now, and I apologize for that. More on that in a bit. But I mentioned last session that, I might be coming up with something a little different this time around. I threw the question out there, what do y'all think about a tour versus not doing a tour? And by and large, I would say 90 to 98% of the comments that talked about my my question there, that answered or responded to that question, by and large, ooh, what's going on here? Oh, wow, okay. This is from our Who's Laughing Now contribution. Apparently we finished in the top 75% of players and earned a bronze reward from the hyena breeding community challenge that we participated in. So, great, awesome. Hey, a good note to return with. We've got ourselves a brand new snow leopard. Okay, fair enough. I just got to remember that I have one of these. We will be momentarily actually returning to Elite Zoo North during our time lapse today, but I don't think we have room for a snow leopard to be added just quite yet. But good to know that we have one for the potential inevitability. And in fact, since we're talking about this right now, why don't we go ahead and take a look at nothing else to claim over here, right? Yeah, all right, cool. Sounds good. 2 rewards claimed. I only saw 1. Was the other one just, I guess, conservation credit, so it just got added in without giving me a huge pop-up or anything. But anyway, folks, I threw the question out there with regards to having a tour or not having a tour. By and large, as I was saying, about 98% of y'all were of the opinion that we don't need a tour. We get a tour more or less at the beginning of every session. We kind of see all the spaces and everything. But some of you mentioned that it would be a good way to get everybody up to speed. If you haven't watched a lot of episodes lately, it'll be a good way to get up to speed and catch up and things like that, which is a good point as well. So, of course, and as always, I took all of the feedback into consideration. I took all of the shared opinions into consideration, and I've come up with something a little special that I think, or that I hope that you guys will all enjoy. It will be at the end of today's episode. It will be very different from anything I've done before, not just for this series, but just in general. I think it's very different from anything I've ever done before. So it'll be a nice way to kind of commemorate this moment. And it will, I think it'll be a good time. I think it'll be a good time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, but of course, that comes later, because what we're going to be doing right off the bat today is actually diving into a time-lapse. Like I said, there's a couple of things I wanted to do with regards to today's time-lapse. There's a couple of things I have in mind, and I actually got a couple of suggestions as well with regards to what we might want to do to make the time-lapse stand out a bit as well, and be a bit more kind of special as well to commemorate the occasion. So taking that into account too, there's a lot to do. Just want to mention very quickly, folks, again, I apologize for the delay in the occurrence of this episode, I suppose is a way to put it. Again, if you follow me on Twitter or if you are in the Discord, you will very well know what the situation was. I will have some news to share, hopefully later this week, that'll explain exactly what's been going down. But is that a bird? Did someone throw a bird? Okay, first of all, that looks tasty. It looks like like a advertising burger. But second of all, how? How? I mean, hey, it's worth a laugh, so I guess it's fitting it's with the hyenas. But dude, come on, man. Can this even be cleaned up? It's legit. It's totally here. It's casting a shadow and everything. It's legitimately physically on here. And I good throw. It's remained intact, which is impressive. It's landed a decent distance. This is let's assume This person over here is about like 5'5", maybe not 6, but like 5'5", let's say. Right, so that's about like it's about 10 feet from this side, about 7 feet from this side, maybe. Not a bad throw. Good, yeah, it must have had a good like swirl to it and everything to land so perfectly. Anyways, yeah. Anyway, I'm done with that. I can't sometimes. a wonderful welcome back gift, I suppose. But as I was saying, yeah, I do apologize for the delay. There's an explanation to it all. Things have been really wild last week. So I kind of gave the heads up, especially on Twitter early on. Just like it's a funky week coming up ahead. So things were delayed. And on top of that, I wanted to do the special thing that I mentioned earlier. So it all kind of it came together as the perfect storm. But folks, that just means that there is no more time to waste on an introduction or a conversation about plans or comments or what I read and how I read. As you all very well know, I read all the comments and I try and take them all into consideration as I move forward with the series and try to implement various things. So without talking about highlighting everything that I read, it's time to act upon it. So folks, we're going to dive into the time lapse right off the bat. After that, we'll probably dive right into the special thing that I had planned, I think. Might do a little segment in between them, but yeah, it might be a slightly shorter episode than usual, but that's only because of the various parts that make it up. That's the only reason it would be a shorter episode, so we will still get a lot accomplished. Folks, with that said, and with me not really sure where to put the camera for the stuff that we'll be doing today, I mean, I suppose I could just kind of do this, because it's going to be a big one, folks. It's going to be a big one. Either way, folks, it's Timelapse time. Alright, folks, we are back at it again, diving on into a time-lapse that has been quite some time, and it is wonderful to be back today. As promised, we're going to kick things off with a handful of sponsor boards. First off, we have for the Otters, Heather Faye joining in, becoming a brand new sponsor for our Giant Otters. Thank you very much, Heather Faye. Next up, over here by the Lions, we're adding a brand new sponsor as well with Corasaurus. Again, thank you, Corasaurus, for sponsoring the West African Lions and keeping the Lions alive, healthy, well-fed. Next up, for our Hippos, we have another addition as well. In this just adorable looking, I'm quite pleased with the open mouth kind of a look thing. I'm very happy with it. It's not anatomically correct, but it's illustrative. I've taken some artistic liberties, and I'm quite pleased with this piece here. But as I was saying, adding on to the support structure of the Hippos at Elite Zoo South, we have none other than Rosalie V. Thank you very much, Rosalie, for sponsoring the Hippos. But that's not all, folks. As you can imagine, a new animal was added very recently at Elite Zoo South, and so we will have a few new sponsors actually added for the cheetah. Spent some time coming up with a new idea. Thought of an interesting way we could maybe implement sponsor boards for the cheetah. It's always an adventure. It's always different every time I'm adding a new animal to try and come up with a new kind of angle or a new, idea or a new way to take advantage of the pieces that the game has. With regards to the cheetah, I thought it'd be fun to we'll have the running cheetah, the bounding cheetah, and add to said bounding cheetah some energy lines in the form of lights. I thought it'd be a kind of a nice idea to kind of light up the sign in that way, or rather light up the area in that way, but also give the signage a bit of light for itself. So first up, we have Kyla Plumley joining in as our first sponsor for the cheetahs, and you can see a bit of experimentation going on over here as well, with me kind of spacing out the letters and trying to create this like sense of almost like speed, if you will, and the letters coming apart because of how quickly the cheetah's going, but it wasn't really communicating. Again, sometimes when you experiments aren't going to work out, so you gotta back up and try something different. Tried it out, didn't work, flipped back and did something that actually works, and you can actually read the name properly. It didn't look like the names were reading like names if I spread the letters out too much and inconsistently. So we have Trigart joining in as another cheetah sponsor, and we also have Milliliter joining in as a cheetah sponsor as well. And there you can see with the speed lines, the rapid movement lines of the cheetah kind of zipping through time and space, or just space perhaps, so not that fast. I thought it was a nice way to kind of like get a unique feel going for a particularly fast animal. You'll actually see me now that we have the lights on, tweaking these signs a little bit just to make sure they work a bit better. I wasn't entirely pleased with how they looked when we first flipped the switch, so to speak, on the light, but now that I'm actually able to see it lit up, I can quickly like adjust it and make it feel a bit more like the tapering. I think does a lot to help that speedy feel. But that's not all, folks. We do have one more sponsor board to add. Back at Elite Zoo North, we have this request from previously, a new sponsor for our pandas. That is David Hallowell. And thank you very much, David, for sponsoring the giant pandas. Or I should just say the panda, in spirit of our panda versus panda competition. I suppose I should just say the panda. But yes, there you have it, folks. We've got David Hallowell for the pandas, Kyla Plumley, Trigart, Milliliter for the cheetah, Heather Fay for the giant otter, Corosaurus for our lions, and Rosalie V for our hippos. Thank y'all for joining in and becoming a part of making Elite Zoo South possible. With all that done, moving on to what I think at least is a bit of a special undertaking. Undertaking is perhaps an understatement. It's way more than an undertaking at this point in time. But folks, the wayfinding is something that many of you have been requesting an update on for a very long time, and it's something that I keep saying I'll be getting to, and one thing or the other keeps coming up, and it keeps getting sort of set aside, pushed aside, because it's always like, well, do people want to see wayfinding, or do they want to see a new animal? Do they want to see wayfinding, or do they want to see a different sort of beauty pass? Do people want to? It's always a challenge for me to kind of like juggle what I think people might want, or how I think the last couple of episodes have gone, and how I should course correct accordingly, or how I should adjust accordingly. Like, for example, this episode's a great example, actually, where initially I was hoping this episode would have released, last week on schedule perfectly. But of course, life has a funny way of not letting things be perfect. And so instead, this episode's coming a fair bit later. And so I was mulling over it. I was like, well, we spent so long away from the zoo. Will people be happy with a time lapse that's not adding an animal or not doing a larger beauty pass? Will folks be happy with the wayfinding pass? I wasn't sure, but this was my plan, previously, and I thought, well, why not? Let's go for it. So let me know what you think. Again, I hope you like it, because personally, for me, this is a very big, not only is it a very big part of the zoo, but it's a part that ties the zoo together. And of course, we aren't able to complete the whole thing in one sitting, but it just feels good to even make progress on this thing, because otherwise we'll never complete it, as many of you have rightfully pointed out, and I don't disagree at all with that statement. I want to make sure we make progress on it, right? And again, like I was saying, it feels like one of those things that is really about the entire zoo as opposed to a specific area, which feels fitting for a massive milestone episode. So I thought that was nice, and I touch on this a little bit later as well, after the time lapse. But I feel like lights are a very celebratory thing. A lot of festivals and stuff are centered around light. I can think of a handful off the top of my head, right off the bat. It's not a long shot to see lighting be associated with celebration, and so I thought there's a couple of layers to that. So why don't we stick to what my original plan was and do a pass on the wayfinding, well, I've got something special planned for after the time lapse as well, which I sincerely hope you enjoy. It's very different from, I think I mentioned this before the time lapse and maybe even after, and I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but it's very different from anything we've ever done before, especially with Planet Zoo. And, as I always say, what's life without risk? So taking a bit of a risk, having some fun. I hope you like what I have planned for after the time lapse as well. Well, after the time lapse, I mean after the time lapse, because after the time lapse, we look at the stuff a little bit up close, a little bit more in detail. But then after the time lapse, I've got something fun coming. But yeah, so it's a pretty challenging task actually doing the wayfinding, because kind of fiddling with each individual light, making sure they're lined up properly, and then having the multiple lights, while absolutely beautiful, it is challenging to line it up properly and make sure they're all not clipping through the terrain all funny, and they're all at the right heights. I mean, from time to time, there are things left behind that I would love to finesse more, but again, the very real pressure of time is always, it's always there. It's always hanging over my head, as it were. So I had to. There's some cases, especially after this section over here, where the height isn't exactly what I want it to be, but I can make do with it for now, and later on when the time comes to finesse this stuff, I can finesse it. With that said, though, I'm really quite pleased with some of the shapes we're getting. I really like this kind of sharp turn over here. I really like our little T junction, if you will, that connects to the ramp that goes up and around Kangaroo Kuyong. I really quite like a lot of the shapes we're getting and a lot of the colors we're getting. Well, the colors we're always happy with, but I mean, the way they're working with like the spaces around them, and I quite like how it's looking from up above. In fact, there was a comment that I can't remember it like word for word, but I'm gonna paraphrase it a bit. But there was a comment that was along the lines of like, do the wayfinding because from up on high, it looks really beautiful, and that struck a chord with me because I too quite like how it looks from up on high. I quite like how it looks. Again, it's this like, it brings the zoo together in a way that other things kind of can't, because we take such disparate approaches, because we take such visually distinct looks and feels and put them next to each other. It's good to have something that brings it all together. At Elite Zoo North, things were a little less disparate, actually. Going back to visit Elite Zoo North today is not only eye-opening in that sense, but also kind of fun because it's episode 100. But Elite Zoo North had strangely enough, a bit more, I guess, consistency in some of its shapes and forms, whereas with Elite Zoo South, we've gone completely wild with it. Our elevations all over the place. We've got all kinds of, like, different rocks and stuff going on. We've got enclosures that are, like, thin rectangles. We've got enclosures that are squares. We've got circular enclosures. We've got all sorts of wild stuff going on, right? And so to help kind of tie it all together, of course, we can use vegetation, but I find this lighting works as well, and I do quite like how it looks from up on high. Like I was saying, that one comment, and many of you have said this in the past as well, but for last episode's comments, there was this one that just kind of like struck a chord where I was like, yeah, I do quite like how it looks from up on high, and I really do. Every time I zoom out and get that high view and it's dark, which isn't often, but when it does happen, I always, in the back of my mind, I go, I wish I had more of this done. So in that sort of a way, it's a lot of moving parts, I guess, coming together that drove this decision. And I do hope you all like it as well and appreciate it as well. It's also kind of like serene in its own way. Just working on lighting, it feels very kind of just calming. The music in the background, you got some nice and dark with some slight hot spots and stuff. It's not too in your face. There's not 100 notifications popping up. Not that the time-lapse ever has 100 notifications, but like not 100 things to worry about per se. Like you don't have to think about like, oh right, I forgot the entrance, or oh no, how's the path gonna work, or oh, there's like a certain, again, I don't like using the term zen for this because it's such a like throwaway, like, oh, that's so zen, like, you know what I mean? But it has that like calming, serene, almost relaxed vibe about it. So I had a good time with this time lapse. It was a nice way as well to kind of get back into Elite Zoo South after a bit of a unfortunate break, I guess, from last week. And then this will allow us to kind of like go full force next session. I've got some grand plans for next session and for the sessions coming after that as well. Actually, I've got some big plans. Very excited for what comes after episode 100 at Elite Zoo South because it's quite a bit. But folks, that's more or less it for the time lapse as we get these last couple of lights in place and make a couple of tweaks and adjustments and get the second line in here as well. That'll more or less be it for this time lapse, and then we're going to dive into, again, a bit of a conversation about everything you saw in the time lapse and just discussing some future plans, some past stuff, episode 100 kind of stuff. And then we're going to dive into something, again, a little extra special. So if all you ever do is watch the time lapse, and just a heads up, there's something that you might enjoy later in the episode. It's not the longest episode because of kind of how all that had to be prepared and shot and done, but I hope you enjoy it. But folks, that is it for this time lapse. Now it's time for regular speed. All right, folks, we are back from the time lapse, and what a time lapse it was! Oh my god! Honestly, we all always knew that the wayfinding would be a massive task. As much as I said I was going to keep up with it as the zoo expanded, it was a massive task right from the beginning. Placing each individual cylindrical light down takes so much time when you've got these like curved shapes and all that kind of stuff going on. So it's always been a huge undertaking from day zero. But obviously, as we went further and further along without adding the lights, it became a bigger and bigger task. But I wanted to get some work done on that this session because it's something we were aspiring to, or at least I was aspiring to, and many of you as well in the comments have requested, like, hey, let's get some work done on the wayfinding. Let's, like, try and not fall too far behind. Now, some would argue we've already fallen too far behind, but I disagree. I think we are actually fine. As much as it might seem otherwise, I think we're actually fine. Because if you think about it, we got like this outer ring and this inner ring over here, and I don't know if I'll do both. I'm like quarter of the way done the outer ring over here, but I'll probably do both. You got this ring over here, we got this path over here. Like it's not that much. It's not that much, or so I tell myself. It's not that much. I think we'll be okay. And then obviously we've got the other half of the zoo as well. But even then, a lot of this space is plains and large vast empty spaces and things like that. So I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think it's going to be a problem. But yeah, wow, that took a long time. That took a long time, and getting these, I was especially concerned about the ramps and getting the heights and stuff right on these and the curves of these paths. I mean, they take time to smooth out, and even then, there's like a little bit of jank every once in a while that I might want to go in and tweak and finesse. But overall, very pleased with how it's looking, and it's looking quite, I don't know, I'm very pleased with just how kind of like bright it is and the colors that we've picked out and everything, and how the shapes are all coming together. And it's I don't know, it really is quite something. And I felt like light is always like a celebration thing for me. I don't know, maybe it's just me. But I feel like there's a lot of festivities out there that where light is a center point, and whether it's fireworks or candles or what have you, or strung up lights. So I thought that was a nice kind of celebratory thing we could do, and it's something we've kind of been thinking about for a while. So there was that. And of course, before we got into that, we did a couple of sponsor boards as well. We have our, whoa, man, this zoo is massive. Where are we? There we go. We got a couple of new sponsor boards that we got placed as well. Over the course of that time lapse, and of course one was at Elite Zoo North as well. Really nice to have these come into place. It's just there's something about again, I've said this 100 times, 1,000 times maybe. There's something about how wonderfully integrated this suggestion was, because remember, sponsor boards was a suggestion, and it just they make so much sense in a zoo. I love the idea of it, and I love that we're able to use them like this. Honestly, it's one of those things that has worked out so nicely. Let's go ahead and just fix the lighting over here. I think. Go get all these boards double checked over here, and of course we have our cheetah sponsor boards as well. Trying to get the high energy look on the lighting and stuff like that. I might get rid of some of these ones, like the top and bottom one, and keep just this one that feels like it's like speed lines basically. But yeah, pretty pleased with how all these are looking. I might, you know what, now that I'm here, I realize during the time-lapse recording I was like, no, I think this is fine. But now that I'm back, I think I realize that this needs to be a bit brighter. Yeah, there we go. And we kind of like light up this space as a whole as well. And what we could do actually is, since we're over here, is I could also pop this down over here and like so, and just rotate this a little bit. It's got some power. Good. That means I can just kind of tilt this down, and yeah, it kind of lights up the path over here. And what I could do is maybe get another one over here that does the same thing, points in the same kind of direction, just to get some more of these paths lit up and stuff, because there's a line between dimly lit and unlit, and we're very much living in unlit for many parts of the zoo. But I think that's quite nice. Yeah, I think that's quite nice. Got our speedy cheetahs over here. Good stuff. Now, folks, as I said, to commemorate this massive occasion, honestly, this absolutely insane milestone, I have something special planned. Now, for the special thing I have planned, we're gonna have to flip back to daytime, and well, things are gonna be very different. Things are gonna be very different from anything I think we've done before, especially with Planet Zoo. I do hope you quite like it. Just want to mention before it begins that, folks, if you've been enjoying this series, and if you'd like to see more of this series, if you'd like to see it continue for hundreds more episodes, if not more, the best way to make sure that happens is by leaving a like, leaving a comment, and watching. Obviously, at the end of the day, when it all comes down to it, view counts, like counts, comment counts, that kind of stuff makes a massive difference. It not only lets me know that folks are interested, but, folks being interested obviously makes a massive difference in other ways as well, and just the sustainability of the series, the channel, that kind of stuff. So, if you would like to see more Planet Zoo on the channel, make sure you let me know. leave that like, leave that comment, tune in, watch the video. You're already watching the video if you're hearing me say this, so I don't know why I'm mentioning it. Maybe because my mind's sort of on a roll right now, and it's just like, say what comes to mind. But folks, I hope you've been enjoying these 100 episodes of Elite Zoo South, 200 episodes of the Elite Zoo Company, and to commemorate all of this grandness, a little something special for you. Welcome to Elite Zoo South, a wonder down under full of adventure, learning, and, well, more. Visit the massive Croc Rock, home to the ferocious saltwater crocodile. Hop on over to Kangaroo Kooyong and meet Australia's national animal, the red kangaroo, before making your way over for some quality time with the koalas and a casual stroll by the cassowaries. Watch our massive packs of dingoes that play across a vast enclosure styled after their home, and spend time with all the lizards and snakes and creepy crawlies of the continent from the safety of 3-inch bulletproof glass that not even Australian snakes can break through. Want to spend time with something a little less dangerous? Elite Zoo South has you covered. The West African lions have been with us for generations, some of the finest lions the world has to offer, coveted by zoos around the world looking to help the lion population. Everything the light touches is truly their kingdom, as long as it's within the bounds of their massive enclosure. Don't think that's funny? Well, who do we have here laughing then? Ah, the hyena, a most wonderful beast with a most peculiar call for danger and distress. The African painted dogs of Elite Zoo South can be found on the dog walk right next to their Australian counterpart, the dingo. But deeper into the zoo, you'll find the magical warthog, set apart by its uncanny ability to teleport through glass. Good thing our snakes can't do that. Ride a boat by the giraffes and zebras in their serene habitat, or ride the train by the speedy cheetah on your way to the partying persimmons. Buy an umbrella and visit the hippos and pygmy hippos before you boat down the Nile past the Nile monitors. Watch the bonobos at play, the gorillas on guard, and the Aldabra tortoises on march. Meet the delicious Galapagos giant tortoise and find yourself embedded deep in the jungle alongside our exceptional leopards, before visiting the Mesoamerican dig site that has been overtaken by white-faced capuchin. You're gonna want to see the iguana and the frogs and snakes and beetles before you reach the llamas. A walk through Llama Lane is like no other, where you're never sure if an animal has passed out or away. Spend time with the otters by the scenic Grand Waterfalls, or relax by Pachamama's garden, next to the giant anteaters and Baird's tapirs. For over 150 years, the Elite Zoo Company has called this little corner home, for us and our beloved animals, and with your help, we hope to stay here for 150 more, if not longer. So come visit Elite Zoo South to see what we have and what comes next. A massive thanks to all of the channel members and patrons who've been supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big ol' thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.